Hello everyone. In today's video, it's time to finally start the waxing. So before we start, let's go back over what we've accomplished already. By this point, we should have already articulated all three cases, project 1, 2, and 3. We'll check the occlusion to make sure they are articulated in class 1 occlusion. If there's anything wrong, they have to be knocked off at this point and redone. So we're assuming everything's okay. All three cases are done. And now we're going to start. We have to do this in a specific way. You can't jump. You can't just go off and do what you want to do. It'll never work out. It's going to come back and bite you later. So let's do this correctly. So the video's obviously recorded. I'll be doing this in laboratory class so everyone can see it. But I want to have this down so you can watch it a few times till it sinks in and it becomes second nature. So right now I'm holding case number 1. The mandibular teeth are prepared, so there's 2 premolars and 1 molar. And the maxillary, as you can see, is a full counter. So we've articulated the case using the Bonwell triangle. The articulator, if you notice, it's nice and clean. You can see that the plaster is nice and smooth. I used a sanding block. Once it's stiffened with a little bit of cold water to smooth it off, it looks really nice. Remember, curb appeal, really important. So now, first thing we're going to check. If you notice, this articulator has all kind of gauges. There is an incisal guidance. So on the incisal guidance angle, we're setting up that at approximately 30 degrees. So if you're looking at a maxillary and mandibular central, the maxillary central overlaps the mandibular central. If you drew a line connecting the upper and lower incisal edges, you would get a 30-degree angle. So on the articulator, if you notice, let's see if you can see it right here, there is a setting. So all you have to do is loosen the thumb screw, move it up or down, and this is given to you by a doctor. You're not making this up. So that's the incisal guidance angle. Also, if you look slightly next to it on the inside, you see a black dial that goes from 0 to 30. We're setting that at 15 degrees. So that's the condylar lateral movement. That's an average setting. So if a doctor does not give you a measurement, then you would set, and you can see right where I'm pointing, you would set that area at 15 degrees. And the incisal guidance you would set at 30 degrees on both sides. If a doctor gives you measurements, then you put in what he gives you. Okay, so we check that. Everything's tight. Oh, each day you should tighten all of these screws just by hand, because they tend to wiggle when you put it in a locker. If any of these move, then everything you do from that point on is wrong. And if you don't find out for a couple weeks, then all your work is ruined and you have to start over. So for the couple seconds, just to check each one of these points, make sure everything's tight, make sure you have incisal guidance at 30, you have the lateral movement at 15, you're ready to go, everything's locked in place. So now, let's open this up. First thing we're gonna do, we'll take our red pencil. If you don't have one, let me know. What we are going to do is we're going to mark the prepared area, the margin. So I am marking the buccal contour. I'm marking the lingual. Let's go to the other side. Same thing. Mark the buccal. This is no different. You've done inlays, so you've done the exact same thing in first semester. Mark lingual, where the doctor prepared to. Okay, so I hope you can see that. If not, you'll see it in lab when I do it. Now we're going to take an educated guess where the cusps are going to go. If you look at the book, and remember I said you have to have this book. If you don't have this book, you're dead before you start. I mean, you really, really need this. So you're going to have to pick it up from the bookstore. And again, it's not in Barnes & Noble. It's not online. It's not anywhere. The only place it can be, it's specially printed for the bookstore. We're on page 51. So at page 51, you can see these little red marks. They're showing you the approximate location of the cusps. If you switch over to the opposing, and you look very carefully at the opposing, it shows you little contact points. So you can see that when you fold the book onto itself, they actually articulate. So if I was to ask you on a buccal cusp tip of a lower mandibular second premolar, it occludes with what? It occludes with the mesial triangular fossa on the upper first molar. If I asked you on a lower first molar, the 3 buccal cusps, where do they occlude? You might as well learn it now. If you look at where do they occlude, the mesial triangular fossa, the central triangular fossa, the distal triangular fossa. And we're going to be establishing these one at a time, and by the end of each day, you will know where all these are. So let's start. So again, first step, we checked everything, we're okay, the articulator's nice and clean. I marked the buccal and lingual, so I know where the doctor prepared. Now the next thing, now that I just looked at the book, now I'm going to take an educated guess at where I think it is. So I'm going to be putting some little red marks. And again, I'm just guessing. I hope everyone remembers that on the mandibular first premolar, there are 2 cusps. On the maxillary, on the mandibular second premolar, there are 3 cusps. And again, you can take, so if this is project 1, if you take your other models that you have on 2 and 3, here's your guide. So here's the case you're working on. There's going to be the next case. If you notice, the teeth are all there, the anatomy's there. You should have these right next to each other. So if you have the book, you follow the instructions, you have your master model in front of you to look at, and you work on it step by step, it can't possibly be wrong. So of course in a laboratory you don't have something like this, but for a learning experience, it's a great tool to have. Okay, so we marked everything. Now let's come over. Before I start adding, we're gonna start with, I guess, white wax for no better reason. If I was to put wax on this right now, it would just start falling off as fast as I add it, because I'm not dipping it, I'm just waxing an occlusal surface. So before I do anything else, I'm going to add a slight film of white wax. So I can take my white wax, and very lightly, just across the occlusal surface. I mean, so little that you can hardly see it. So what I'm doing is, I'm taking, whether you have a spatula and a Bunsen burner, or you have a no flame, or electric wax, or whatever you want to use, it's all the same. I am not building a tooth yet. All I'm adding is the tiniest little bit of white wax, and I make sure it's extremely hot, because it'll then penetrate the pores of the stone. So again, I am not building anything. All I'm doing is melting the hottest wax I can get in place. I'm going to go through all 6 teeth with this. I'm just going to do 1 now, because I don't want you all sitting here watching me do this. Waste of your time, but you get the idea. So mark the red first, buccal and lingual, then take the pencil, put a little dot where you think, again, this is just an educated guess, we're not sure yet, where we think the cusps are going to go. After that, a little bit of hot wax, both sides, all 6 teeth. Now I'm ready to start. So I looked at the book, I took my master model, I've looked at the textbook. The textbook shows that the buccal cusp on the premolar occludes with the mesial triangular fossa on the opposing premolar. So right now what I'm going to do, I'm not building a cusp, I'm building a sort of an